Hello, 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 everyone, and welcome to another adventure in history. I'm your host, Shane McInnes, possessor of two thumbs. Hope everybody is having a good Thursday. Hope everybody remembers that it is Thursday. I know that in the world of COVID, it's a day, right? I am Smarticus. Oh, how's it going, everybody? Hey, Kyle. Hey, Fid. Hey, Daria. How's it going? Hope everybody's having a good one. It's been an interesting day so far. Hello to my beautiful wife. Hey, Jim Bob. What's up? Hope everything's going well wherever you are. Are you still in Tuscaloosa, Jim Bob? Hey, Graythor, how's it going? Adventure Hat. Greetings to everybody. Cool. Roll Tide. You could have just skipped the "yeah, I am" and just put Roll Tide, and I would have I would have picked up on that. I don't know what Tuscaloosa is going to do if the SEC doesn't let them play football. Cutting out a pine tree horizon. Oh wow, that seems... Cryomera! What up? We have talented people in the room. Let me once again do the shout outs. Seattle Kraken. I heard about that, Fid. New expansion team. I actually watch hockey. That's another one of the weird things that I have found that nobody... Well, I have one other friend in Mississippi that watches hockey, and nobody else really cares around me. Dad dang it. You guys know that I can't talk and type at the same time. The Seattle Kraken did happen. They're going to start 2021-22, so basically next season. Whoop whoop. That's going to be cool. For those of you that are not hockey fans, Seattle is getting a hockey expansion team in the NHL. It's going to be called the Seattle Kraken. Release the Kraken! I am wondering if they're going to bring over the squid tradition. It would only be appropriate, but it would tick the East Coasters so off. Oh, it'd be great. Assuming society still exists by then, right? Well, I hope tonight actually is a bit of crackheads. Oh, yeah. Crackheads. That's going to be their unofficial mascot. It's like Davy Jones stumbling around holding up a "We'll work for food" sign. "We'll pillage for food." Oh, man. Good times. I already feel better about the day. Today's been a tough one. I kind of got burned out this morning. Got lots of stuff going on. I've got 3 different projects that are sort of concurrently running with the sociology classes that I'm taking right now. One of them is a group project that is, oh man, it's like pulling teeth. Like pulling teeth. Unless it's Bob and Doug playing hockey. What about Wayne and Garth playing hockey in the road? Game on! Right? Gotta love that. Lots of fine. That's why lots of players have missing teeth. Okie dokie. So welcome, everyone. I hope everybody knows everybody. If you don't know everybody, welcome. Make friends. Spread the love. Do something nice for somebody this week. Try to make the world a little bit better, right? We're all in this together. Don't forget that. And don't forget that in this wider, chaotic, crazy crap storm hurricane that is the year 2020, that you have a calm eye of the storm here on Twitch where we can all come together. We can support each other. We can be chill. We can make really bad puns. We can talk about crackheads. Just let's try to remember to take care of each other. I know it seems really hard right now to give because a lot of us are sort of tapped out, emotionally. And if you are tapped out, let somebody know. Don't just feel like you're in it by yourself, right? So this is not a motivational room, and we're not here to talk talk self-help or anything like that. But sometimes it's good to hear somebody else say that you are not alone. People have your back. Hawaii's getting wrecked. REKT, wrecked. All right, so the spill goes like this. The show is Adventures in History. We talk about historical stuff. We have fun. We goof off. We debate the finer points of Middle Earth history. I occasionally get roped into doing something quasi-embarrassing, like showing off Mr. Potato Head dressed as Darth Vader or rapping. Whatever happens, happens. We don't put boundaries on ourselves here. We just show up to have the love, right? You have family there. Oh, crap, Cryo. I hope everything's all right. You just saw the title of the stream. Yes, as always, the title of our stream is some pop cultural reference or bad pun. Since we are going to be talking about the Phoenicians quite a bit tonight, I thought it only appropriate that the title be Bye Phoenicia, which I thought was ridiculously hilarious. My wife called me a turd. I probably am one, but I thought it was great. Don't forget that you can send me emails, mckinnistravels@gmail.com. Anything that you can think of. You have questions about stuff, you want to know what's up with stuff, you just want to say, hey, you found something cool to read, you can do that. A turd, unforgivable. Yeah, I know. I'm kind of a turdy guy, though. I have real dad joke power. Yeah, see, Fid calls her husband a turd all the time. It's a symbol of love, right? She's called him way worse. Great minds, right? Yeah, see? Kindred spirits, even amongst the Twitterverse, right? You can also follow me on social media at SomeHistoryGuy. I post stuff there occasionally. It is not inflammatory. I do not try to add to the chaos of the world. I just try to share some cool knowledge. I've also got a Discord that I just recently started. It's still kind of sucky, but I would appreciate everybody giving me some input. If you want to swoop over and tell me, hey, this looks crappy, or hey, you should add this, I would be more than happy to take suggestions. It is here, if you wanna. Mostly it's just been me posting memes, like history memes, which I may or may not have made some of myself because I am a giant nerd, but that's okay, right? We're all friends here, or at least I hope we are. All right, so anybody have any questions or anything, or want to redeem any points off the top here? I do have quite a lot of stuff down below your chat window. They're all, and I'm looking, oh, there they are. I'm looking for suggestions for more stuff to do with channel points. If you have any ideas about what you would like to do, how I might potentially entertain you. But I do feel like I need to quote Gladiator right now and say, are you not entertained? Which, by the way, is what happens when someone hosts me. That's my little alert. It says, are you not entertained? Good times. All right. No, not really. Well, cheers. All right, so let's talk Phoenicia. You should act out scenes from history using sock puppets or action figures. That's actually not that bad of an idea. I would have to work on that. That would be like an arts and crafts project that I'd have to plan out ahead of time. Sock puppet theater. I do know that Mac in a Lab Coat, one of my mods, was either directly or tangentially involved in sock puppet Shakespeare in high school, where the entire scenes of that Scottish play that I don't reference because I did too much theater and I'm also Irish and very superstitious in certain things, don't say the name of, that Shakespeare wrote with all those people that start with Mac, did that all in puppets. So how flexible are you on these channel? See, What Kyle is trying to get me to do right now is put some
Friends,
Romans,
Romans,
countrymen,
lend me your ears. I come to
bury Caesar, not to praise him. Thanks for the host, Cryomera. Much, much appreciated. What Kyle is trying to get me to do is put some sort of redeem channel point thing to put my foot or my feet behind my head. I am very bendy. I stretch a lot. I've always been very flexible. I did gymnastics for a very long time. I do yoga. So he's trying to get me to put my foot behind my head on stream, and that's almost certainly not going to happen. Do you see Darth Tater and his Spud Trooper represent the incoming Persian army, while Strike Freedom represents the Spartans and Death Side of Hell represents the other Grecian fighters?
Friends, Romans, countrymen.
And thanks for the host, Darian.
I come to bury Caesar, not to praise him.
Everybody can bend. You just got to start small, right? Everybody can bend. Start small. Stretch every day. Do a little bit of yoga. Get yourself moving. Get all that muscle stretchy and tendon stretchy stuff going on. You figured it out. Many thanks. All right, so let's get down to the history part. So where we sort of left off over in the Near Eastern world. So way back a couple of streams ago, I know everybody remembers all of this stuff that I'm telling you, right? And you all have committed it to your photographic memories, and you can give really elaborate discourses of all of the stuff that we've covered. I jest. Oh, dude, I could just become Saitama. I don't want to work that hard because I want to keep my hair. I'm probably going to lose a little bit of it anyway, so I don't want to go straight Saitama. Even, well, I don't know, man. If I had One Punch Man powers, that might be an even trade. Oh, wait, there's a quiz? Maybe I should do that. Maybe I should do quizzes and give away channel points or something. I don't know. That's an interesting concept. Okie dokie. So we left off talking about the Near East and the Bronze Age collapsed. And to remind everybody, or to catch you up if you weren't around, the Bronze Age was really, really cosmopolitan. For an ancient period of time, there was all sorts of ridiculously large amounts of international travel. There were trade routes that stretched 2,000 plus miles. There were embassies and ambassadors and trade treaties and international alliances and intermarriage, and all of this crazy stuff was going on, and then it fell all apart, right? The Bronze Age collapsed and civilization went with it. So what happens? Well, again, we're going to have to skip a little bit. For about 200 years, we really don't know very much about what happened, other than things got real bad. And if you think things are real bad right now, at least the lights are still on, right? At least the internet's still working. Imagine if the internet cut out, and then electricity quit working, and then all sorts of travel periods ceased to exist, and that included any sort of international trade. How long would America last living on its own supplies? I think we figured that out back in February when people couldn't buy toilet paper and bread, right? Millennials cry worldwide. Right. It would just go bat crap crazy. Just, right? This is what happened at the ends of the Bronze Age. So there are going to be one group of people in the in the Near Eastern world that sort of ride out this sort of collapse thing, and those are the Phoenicians. And they're kind of a weird and unique group of people in the ancient world, but they're really important to basically so much more than we really understand. People took phonics in school, so if you ever took phonics, well, guess what? Phonics comes from Phoenicians. The alphabet that we use is called the Phoenician script. The Greeks basically straight stole it. And we'll look at that in just a little bit. But who are these people? Where do they come from? Why are they important? What's the big deal with these Phoenicians? And why are we saying bye to them? So the easiest thing that I can do is show you, then the Romans janked that, right? I can show you on the map here where we're talking about geographically speaking, and then I have a smaller map that shows you where all the ancient cities were. So again, we're using Google Earth here, which is a free tool. One thing that I want to mention If you want to download Google Earth, again, it's free and you can actually follow along. I don't know if anybody would want to do that. It's a super cool tool. You can zoom in on cities. It's basically Google Street View for the entire world. And you can use it however you want to. But if you want to follow along and kind of get an idea of what we're doing, that would be something that you could download and do for free. So we're going to be looking mostly at this little strip of land right here. So this is the Mediterranean. Zoom out a little bit. So Mediterranean Ocean right here. Sea, Mediterranean Sea. And this little strip of land right here, which is modern day countries like Syria, Israel, and Lebanon. Please don't stalk exes with it. No, don't do that. And don't stalk anybody. Stalking is just bad, right? I can't do that. It would kill our bandwidth. Yeah, that would probably suck. Also, by the way, for those of you that don't know, we live in rural South Mississippi, and the internet here sucks. So we have to be very gentle with how much bandwidth we use at one time. Whoa, the Mediterranean got upgraded. Yeah, I said the wrong word. All right, so we're talking about this region right here. And the larger Near Eastern world got wrecked at the end of the Bronze Age. Like, gone. All of the big empires collapsed except for the Egyptians, and they fractured into 4 different countries, basically. Assyria still existed, but they're basically a little pocket of crazy folk. Babylon kind of existed, but they're in real bad shape. And everybody else is just dead. So Phoenicians are going to get an interesting bump out of this because they're going to realize that there's a way for them to make money. And money is going to be what pulls them out of their swamp. So let's go to the images here, and I'll show you this map. So the region in green right here is what we would call Phoenician territory. And you can see that the majority of their big cities like Arwad, Tripoli, which was not originally called Tripoli in this time, Byblos, Berytos, which is the modern-day city of Beirut, Sidon, Sarepta, Acre, Tyre, Dor. You see all these big cities right here, right on the coastline, and you can understand right away what these people are going to use to make their money. Anybody want to guess? I'll give you a little bit of a pause. USS Tripoli was just commissioned out of Pascagoula. There we go. That Tripoli is referring to the one that's over in Africa, and we'll actually talk about that one tonight for real too. So, who are these people? Where do they come from? What do they do? If we look at the ancient sources, right? So if we look at histories that were written way back in the day by these people like Herodotus, this other dude named Strabo, this is stuff that's being written like in the 200s, right? So super, super far back in time. They think that the Phoenicians come from this little island called Bahrain, which is over in, I'm sorry, not an island. It's this borders. Yeah, it is an island. I'm confusing Bahrain and Qatar. All right, so this island right here is Bahrain. And it's off the coast of Saudi Arabia. So the ancient people thought that they came from that area. The Phoenicians didn't ever really claim that so much. And we really don't know where they came from overall. Funko, holding our childhood dead-eyed hostage for thousands of years. Oh, they trade bobbleheads. Trading, yes. Bobbleheads, no. Pop figures were not invented at that time, though it'd be interesting to have a series of ancient people pop figures. I would love pop figures of all of the pantheons of ancient gods. I would buy every single one of those. Dude, if I could get a Baal pop figure, that would be freaking awesome. I just got really excited about something that doesn't exist. Okay, so if they weren't from Bahrain, who were they? Well, they're probably Semitic people. If you'll remember, around the 2000s or so BC, there's this big sort of migration wave of Semitic people through the area. The original Phoenicians were probably related to those people. And they settle on those big cities on the coastline, and trade is going to be their money maker. They were actually pretty big during the Bronze Age, especially the city Byblos. Was a big trade hub specifically for bronze. They actually made a lot of it there and would sell it in ingots. So they would bring in tin and copper, and they would smelt the bronze there and then distribute it out. My husband has a YouTube channel and reviews pops. Hey, there's nothing wrong with that. Is it at least semi-sponsored, or are you just eating his addiction? Pops are an addiction, and I have made rules for myself that allow me to only buy pops from video games that I have played that I like. That people have given me other pops, but I have only bought pops from video games that I've played that I've liked. So I've got Brotherhood of Steel guy from Fallout. I've got Dragonborn from Skyrim. I've got a Bulbasaur because I'm down with the Pokemon. Don't hate. And I've got the Claptrap from Borderlands. And I have had given to me a Harry Potter one and the Black Knight from Monty Python with detachable arms, which is pretty sweet. Bulbasaur is the best. Yes, Cryo, tell me about it. Bulbasaur with that vine whip. Gotcha. I love the fact that we can all just sit here and be nerds. I really, really do. Really, really do. All right, so Byblos, big city, one of the biggest of the Phoenician cities, smelting the bronze, distributing it out. And of course, this is going to attract the attention of other big empires. And during the Bronze Age, this region is mostly going to be dominated by the Egyptians. And the Egyptians want all of this area because of the money that it's making. There are lots of communication letters that we have from the height of the Bronze Age between cities in Phoenicia and the Egyptian pharaohs. Squirtle, no. Anybody want a Squirtle? Get that hydro pump out of here. This actually goes back to a very, very old story. When Pokemon first came out for the original Game Boy, Kilted Preacher and I decided that we would get it. And I got Pokemon Red, and he got Pokemon Blue. And he went with the Squirtle. And I should have gone with the Charizard, right, because I got Red. But I decided, you know what, I'm going to go with the Bulbasaur. And I basically beat all of the bosses with that one Pokemon. And it was level 99 or something like that by the... I don't know, probably by like Cinnabar Island. I had already maxed that thing out because I was fighting everything with it. And then, of course, when we linked up and played, his Squirtle got pwned by the Bulbasaur. Because I had no idea how to play an RPG and only played with your starter. Hey! The starter, first Pokemon ever, Bulbasaur, nicknamed Fluffy. Yup. Anyway, you guys didn't come for Pokemon lore. You came for history and camaraderie, so we could talk about that. I haven't played the Pokemon for Switch. Was it Sword and Shield? Last one I played was Pokemon X for 3DS. I'm a little bit behind. I tend not to buy video games until they're way old and they drop in price. I also am getting a master's and changed to a job recently. So it's Pokemon history. I could totally do Pokemon history. Now I'm going to have to add that to the Middle Earth history stream. That's got to come down the pipe. History of Pokemon. Well, back in the day. I think they might be talking about like the history inside Pokemon, not the history of the game, but I could probably do both. Because I'm a giant nerd. Alright, so the Phoenician cities sitting right here on that little pipeway are going to be really interesting for the Egyptians. And the reason is because the Egyptians have bigger plans in this larger Bronze Age world. And so we're picking up in the height of the Bronze Age. And Egypt saw that region as sort of their pathway to get to Syria and Mesopotamia and the Hittite territory in Anatolia. So they wanted to hold on to it. And the Phoenicians are going to not really care too much for the Egyptians. Of course, the Egyptians tax the devil out of them. and they don't follow through with their promises, and it causes a lot of trouble. And some of these cities towards the end of the Bronze Age, when everybody's going crazy and fighting each other, are going to get taken over by the Hittites, especially the northern cities, the ones that are clearly up here closer to where the Hittites would have been, right? That's not going to last. The sea people come through, they burn everything, but strangely, a lot of the really big Phoenician cities get spared by the sea people. And there are a lot of theories as to why exactly the sea people didn't show up and burn all of the Phoenicians. Because these people were rich, and they had access to a lot of goods. And one of the working theories that I sort of like is that the sea people needed somewhere to sell their loot. Right? There's only so much stuff you can hoard. These guys aren't friggin' dragons. They're not building giant piles of, gold and silver and going to sleep on it. They want to exchange that for goods and services. And a lot of people think the reason they didn't burn down the Phoenician cities is because all of the stuff that they could get in the Phoenician cities. So they would go raid Egypt and move up the coastline and sell it in Tyre or Arwad or something like that. There's a lot of speculation going on around that. I don't know if we'd ever really completely know because, again, during the Bronze Age collapse, we don't have a lot of good records. It's all just like, bleh. So there we go. So when the world collapses, these big cities hang on. And they're actually going to form this sort of alliance amongst themselves. They're going to say, look, we're all ethnically similar. We all have a culture that's similar. We're all seafaring, trading people. We just need to we need to huddle up and ride out this storm, right? So they do. And during the collapse period, the Dark Ages, between the collapse of the Bronze Age and the true beginning of the Iron Age, the Phoenicians are one of the only groups of people that get through it better. And this is really good for us as a people group today, because one of the things they figure out how to do is make colonies. Now, the Assyrians had done colonies all the way back in the early Bronze Age, but this isn't the same kind of thing, because the Assyrians weren't packing up ships and sailing into the unknown. They were moving along existing trade lines. The Phoenicians made new trade lines, and they did this by exploring the entire coastline of the Mediterranean. They have tiger blood, always winning. I don't think that they also had AIDS and had problems. Well, I know they did have lots of prostitution. So there are some similarities between Charlie Sheen and the Phoenicians. There we go. Making connections in history. Please don't go out and say, hey man, I was on this history stream and that dude said that all the Charlie Sheen people were like Phoenicians and all they did was like tiger blood and sex and stuff. Drugs? Oh yeah, I mean ancient people have drugs all the time. There are drugs all through the ancient world. I would love to do a drugs in the ancient world stream. Hooked on phonics, if you know what I mean. Oh man, good times. So where are they going? Well, they're going all over the Mediterranean. And I have a good map of this, so let me show you. All right, so the Phoenicians are going to travel all over the Mediterranean. All these little lines are places where they were traveling. And they're bringing this back to the really big cities that survived. And from about 1200 to about 800 BC, these guys are going to make a killing because they're going to be the new international trade routes. They're going to put all of this together on themselves, and they're going to build all of these cities like Cyrene and Lepsus and Carthage and Tangier. They're also going to put together a lot of cities that are modern-day capitals, places like the capital of Algeria, which is today, everybody knows the capital of Algeria, right? The capital of Algeria is Algiers, but originally the ancient city's name was Icosum. They founded that. They founded Utica and Carthage in Tunisia. They founded Oya in Libya, which becomes Tripoli, the modern-day capital of Libya. The ancient city's name is Oya. They found cities on the island of Sicily, which is this guy right here, including the modern-day city that is Palermo. So these guys are going all over the place. And what they're doing as they travel is bringing the trade goods of all of these different areas back to their home cities and territories. And then they're picking up stuff from their home cities and taking them out to the kind of far-flung backwater regions. And they're trading stuff that the people in the Near East didn't have access to for things that they had loads of, right? So things like pottery and glass were not things that you saw over in Western Europe and Northern Africa at that time. It just was technology that they didn't have very much of. The relative culture between somebody that was in Cadiz in Spain and the people in Byblos in Phoenicia was exponentially different, right? So a lot of the people that were over in the Iberian Peninsula, which is today Spain and Portugal, had not really even fully broken into the complete good height of their version of the Bronze Age. There were still Stone Age cultures in a lot of parts of Europe at this time. But what they did have was natural resources. They didn't know how to work iron that well, and there are a lot of places in that region that have iron deposits. So this is very similar to what we might think of when we're talking about transatlantic trade between European nations and Native Americans, where, you know, we buy the island of Manhattan from a Native American tribe for about $14 worth of stuff. But they're getting super rich off of that because these other people over there don't know that they're getting ripped off. Colonialization, right? It works for everybody. And man, the Phoenicians are just rolling in this stuff. But they're also spreading their culture because when they move to these cities, and they actually do found tons of cities, dozens of cities all over the Mediterranean world, they'll bring their own population and drop them off. And those people, of course, want to live like the Phoenicians, right? So they're going to build temples. They're going to build cities that look like cities, you know, with grid patterns and squares and trading hubs and all of the good things that you would want over back in the homeland. But they say bye to Phoenicia, which is why I called tonight's stream Bye Phoenicia, which I'm still very tickled at. I think that's a great title. I don't know if you all appreciate it or not. Perhaps. Anyway, applause. Thank you, Cryo. Much love. Okay, so I've mentioned a few things about them spreading their culture, but I do want to talk specifically about their alphabet, which is actually not originally called an alphabet. The Greeks are the ones that come up with the word alphabet, and it's really not even that particularly what you might call expressive, because it's just the first two letters, A and B, alpha and beta, and you just put it together and you get alphabet. That's literally where it comes from. So let's look at the Phoenician script, and I'll show you some stuff here that I think is pretty neat. If this gets boring, let me know in the chat. I get really, really interested in stuff like this. So this is where our actual alphabet came from. We use today what we call modern Latin script. So this starts as a Sinaitic hieroglyphic. All right, so let's just talk about the letter A. Originally, to draw the letter A, you would draw this little thing right here, which is the head of an ox. The mind is blown. Yeah. See, that's the kind of stuff that that I think is super fascinating, right? The history that's right up under our nose. Okay, so if you see this little guy right here, this is an aleph, because the word in the Sinaitic language was ox, and it's an aleph. But the Phoenicians got a little lazy. They didn't want to draw the whole friggin' picture. They just sort of simplified it. So, like, here's the nose, and these are the ears, and these are the horns. Well, the Greeks are like, we want to steal that, but we want to be able to call it our own. So they start flipping letters over and simplifying things even further. So then by the time that the Romans pick it up, they make it a little bit more refined. This becomes an A, which is what we use today. Right? So this, let me copy your homework. But this is like, hey, let me copy your entire script. Okay, just change it enough so that it's not obvious. Exactly. Extraction is mastery. Right. This is like, there's some saying that's like, imitation is the best form of flattery, right? So let's do one more. This little thing right here is a bet, which is their word for house, right? And this is a little house. Look, it's a square and it's got a door. Boom! Bet. And that becomes this, which becomes this, which becomes this, and that's where we get our B from, right? And so you can do this for all of our different letters. And the Phoenicians are the ones that turned this sort of really difficult gibberishy thing into something that's easier to be used. And they also introduced this concept of sort of writing in a good set line and putting stuff like spaces between your words. A lot of ancient writing and stuff like cuneiform is all just literally mushed together with no spaces, and you have to really know the language to understand where one word starts and one word stops. It's a very contextual language when you read it. So they think, oh, we can write in a line and we can put in stops between words and we can use the simplified script, and then boom, people are like, this is the mind-blown moment. And the Phoenicians, being people that trade with everybody in the world, start using that when they trade. So people start looking at their script and they go, we could totally use that to write our language in. And that's how the Greeks picked it up. And that's how the Latins picked it up. And this stuff that happened 1000 BC, which is 3,000 years ago, is how we got our alphabet today, right? Paper is expensive. It is expensive. It's also why we don't have a lot of really good Phoenician texts, because they also sort of pioneered using a lot of paper to keep bills and stuff. Now, the Egyptians, of course, had pioneered the use of papyrus, which is a plant-based writing medium, and the Phoenicians definitely picked it up pretty easily. They also used vellum, which is leather. Basically, it's a very thin and scraped version of skin that you can write on. It lasts a lot longer than papyrus would, but it also decays if it's buried, especially in wet places, like places around the Mediterranean where there's lots of rain and water. So we don't have a lot of really good pieces of Phoenician writing to go on. We have a lot of different inscriptions that are on different statues and stuff, but what's really weird about the Phoenician script is that we have probably more, and I don't know exact counts, but I would guess at this being pretty accurate. There are probably more inscriptions that use Phoenician script writing other people's languages than there are Phoenician script inscriptions that use the Phoenician language. So basically, like if you go to parts of Turkey and you find these people that are speaking Phrygian or Luvian, they might write using the Phoenician script, but they're writing in their language, right? So like in English, we can use our script, which is not even really our script, to write stuff like English and Spanish and Latin and French and Greek, so we can use the same script for lots of different languages. The same thing was true for the Phoenician script. It's very versatile. It was very utile, had a lot of use, and that's one of the reasons why it stuck around. So Phoenicians are pretty cool people and pretty important people. But they're not really alone. And by the time we get to that 800 or so BC point in time, they're going to end up with neighbors. right? So the Bronze Age is going to collapse right around the 1200 BC to 1100 BC mark. And then for about 200 to 400 years, depending on where you are, there's going to be very little activity going on. But people are going to start pulling themselves out of the darkness, right? There goes the neighborhood. Yup. You wonder why Egypt retains so many manuscripts? Because it's dry as flip. Yeah, exactly what Grethar said. It's dry, and papyrus is kind of laminated because of the plant fiber stuff. The dryness is why Egypt really has so much cool archaeology stuff. If you bury things in a ridiculously arid place where oxygen doesn't have that moisture to decay stuff, you get good archaeology. I would love to go there. Not the best place to travel right now. And of course, travel right now is just kind of overall. So, meh. All right. So, we're not going to go through all of these different little kingdoms because there are about 10 of them. And I could probably do a lecture on each one of them if I were trying to teach you all master's level courses. But ain't nobody want no history masters. Or maybe you do, but I'm not the person to teach you that. Or maybe I am, but I can't do it officially. I can't give you a magical piece of paper, right? I mean, I could draw like a Post-it note or a little postcard that says degree and spell it D-U-G-R-E-E. But it's not going to count for anything, right? So we're going to hit kind of like some high points, and I'll show you some maps, and we'll look at some pictures and stuff like that. And that'll carry us through. So let's talk about Phrygia. I mean, Trump did it. Ooh. The difference is he paid a lot of money. So if you want to pay me the same amount of money that his family paid to get him into that school and then get him through that school and get a degree, I would make you the world's best looking Photoshop thing. I would build websites that made that degree look legit, and I would buy 2 or 3 burner phones and use different voices to answer them, and I could be the registrar, the president, and the faculty advisor that you had. So, I mean, if you want to make that check out, I can send you some details. Sold. All right. Well, let's talk about Phrygia. That's one of the weirdest looking words. Phrygia. That sounds like a movie plot. It is. It's called Accepted. I totally stole that, by the way. Fun movie. I like it quite a bit. I especially like Lewis Black yelling at people because that's what his thing is. I really like listening to Lewis Black yell at people. I also like the stinger thing at the very end where the kid finally does manage to blow the thing up with his mind, because I totally want to be able to blow stuff up with my brain. Was that Justin Long? Yes. Yes, it was. Pretty good movie. You should check it out. I never actually saw that movie. It's worth watching. It's got some good chuckles in there. I mean, it's a kind of a popcorn, goofy, haha flick. But if you're looking for something to burn... by the way, if you all haven't already, if you're not following Crymera, please go do so. Lovely person, great art stream, very chill atmosphere. But also on her Discord, she does movie watches, where you just kind of plug into the Discord, watch some movies, make some MST3K kind of things, share some GIFs. Good times, good times. That would be a good movie to watch, because I think everybody would get a chuckle at it. So, anyway, so what's up with Phrygia? Well, first off, where are they? You got to put all this stuff in context, right? So let's look at the map. It's a map. So this is Phrygia, right here in the middle. And this is basically the regions of Turkey. I couldn't really find a good map of Phrygia. They mostly controlled this region right around in here, in this middle part. The Phrygians are actually going to be kind of neat. I've been to some of the places, and ooh, I should not have done that. Please come back. Yay! I can show you this picture, because you've probably heard of people from Phrygia, and you don't know who they are. But that's okay. This handsome gentleman with his debonair smile is King Midas. If you know the story of Midas and the Golden Touch, that's him. Doesn't look so golden right now, though, does he? But yeah, King Midas was a king of Phrygia. He does great muffler work. For those of you that he forgot to take his vitamins, yeah, he's got a bit of a headache. So just to let everybody know, I am officially wearing the adventure hat. That guy's skull is in a museum that I've been to in Turkey, the capital of Ankara. So I get to wear the adventure hat when I talk about places that I've been. I've seen Midas's skull. Adventure! Where are my emotes? There we go. There we go. Awesome. Should have tried essential oils. They were so cheap and they were on sale. They were on sale. And he had all that gold. Right? Let's go back to the images. Dealing with southern seasons, I know what it feels like to be so congested that you're willing to try that. Yeah, just breathe the eucalyptus. It will open up all of your sinus cavities and align your chakras. This is also a really cool place inside Phrygia. This is a big temple at a city called Aizanoi. The temple itself is a little bit later than what we're going to be talking about. This was most certainly built during a much later period of time. But if you go to Aizanoi, you can see cool stuff that's still around. Also, in my coming soon scenes, one of the pictures there is from the theater at Aizanoi. If you all want to see that, I can switch back over, but it's going to require me to switch over to the intro scene. I probably should have pulled that picture to begin with. Anyway, Aizanoi is a cool place, one of the big cities in Phrygia. No matter what you do, no matter where you go, no matter what you need, you have an MLM scheme will always make a solution. You can, yeah, exactly, right? So Phrygia. Phrygia is in modern-day Turkey. It was, at the time, a up-and-coming kingdom. We're going to hear more about it later. Another one of their kings is a king called Gordian. It's Gordius. So if you've ever heard of the story of Alexander the Great and the Gordian knot, his capital city was Phrygia's capital city, and the Gordian knot was in that area. We'll talk about that later when we get to Alexander the Great. But there's Phrygia. You can do more research on this stuff on your own. If you're interested in some more of this stuff, send me an email. I can send you some more information. Honestly, I always do this, by the way, partially to make sure that I'm up on game, but also just to be able to give you references. The Phrygia Wikipedia page is actually pretty legit. I was very impressed with the accuracy there. So there's Phrygia. But that's not all. There are also a whole bunch of cities that call themselves the Neo-Hittites, which is kind of like, I don't know, craziness. But the Neo-Hittites are not really Hittites. Let's look at the map. I gotta go this way. Right. So this region right here, which was at one time part of the Hittite Empire, is going to break into all of these little kingdoms. So you see all these little different colored places right here. These are all going to be people that claim to be the remnant of the Hittite Empire. Now, they are almost certainly not ethnically related to the Hittites completely, but the Hittite people did not evaporate when their empire collapsed, so they had to go somewhere. And so these little cities are going to be butted up right next to Phrygia, which you can see over here. You can also see Urartu and Assyria, and down here Damascus and Israel and the Phoenicians. So they sit in a pretty important region because of the trade routes that move through them, and especially this big city right here, Carchemish. Carchemish is an incredibly important city in the ancient world. It sits at the crossroads of about 5 or 6 really, really big trade routes. So the Neo-Hittites are going to call themselves a unified kingdom, but just to be straight honest, they're not really a unified kingdom. They fight with each other a whole lot. They don't have a common language amongst all of their regions. They make trades agreements with different groups of people. They sell out their friends sometimes. I mean, they're people in the ancient world, right? They aren't really a unified country, though. But it's important to know that they're there because they're going to cause trouble for other people around them, especially the disruption of trade. So when all of these Neo-Hittite cities start beating the crap out of each other, and you want to move your trade route through, you don't do that, right? One of the biggest things about ancient armies is that it's a lot of folks together. They're doing really hard work, and they're hungry. So imagine if you're, Jimmy the trader, and you're walking through the friggin' middle of nowhere of Turkey, and you run across some Neo-Hittite army, and you're carrying a whole bunch of food. Well, guess what? Your food just got commandeered. And if you make a big stink about it, there's 10,000 guys with swords. They're going to kill you. It happens all the friggin' time. So when these big Neo-Hittite cities start beating the junk out of each other, it causes trouble for everybody in the region. It just makes sense, right? Poor Jimmy. Cryo, I don't know if you're familiar with who Jimmy is. Jimmy is my go-to reference. So anything that I need to happen bad to somebody almost always happens to Jimmy. But the crazy thing about it is that Jimmy also ends up being the one that comes up with the coolest inventions, right? So Jimmy was the dude that figured out that if you chased a woolly mammoth long enough, it would literally keel over dead because its heart would explode. So for 3 or 4 hours, people are watching Jimmy chase this mammoth across the tundra, and they're all laughing at Jimmy like, look at that friggin' moron. Home dude thinks he's going to kill that mammoth. And then the mammoth is like, Hurk! And then Jimmy's like, steaks for dinner? Yeah, so Jimmy's the guy that comes up with all the cool stuff, too. Jimmy's the guy that you get to eat the berries. Like, please kill us. Kill him to Jimmy. So Jimmy has to eat the poison berries or the raspberries. You don't know. Jimmy is one of the most important tools of society, by the way. It takes risk takers, and it takes people that are willing to have low inhibitions to make progress sometimes. So while Jimmy is also dumb, Jimmy also has a lot of things. Jimmy is essential to society. So cheers to Jimmy. Jimmy's a tool. He kind of is a societal tool. So let me just kind of zoom out here and make sure that we're all recognizing what we're talking about. So again, here's Phrygia. I did not put Neo-Hittites on there. Neo-Hittites. Come on now. Aha. The next one is Urartu, which is just horrible to try to say. You take that back. Oh, wait, okay. Jimmy is a tool, but he's also tool. So he's progressive when he rocks. All right, there we go. Urartu. Now, Urartu is a bit of a newcomer to the game. Let me show you where... Oh, I was going to do you kind of a larger map. So again, Phrygia is here in Asia Minor. Anatolia would be the regional term for that. I am yet to ingest enough drugs to get prog rock. You don't have to be high to like Tool. I like Tool, and I don't get high. Their new album is actually really good. I like Tempest. Tempest is probably my favorite track off of it. Pneuma was good too, though. We don't need to talk about Tool albums. Because we'll never get another Lateralis. Tempest, yeah. The drums, about 6.5, 7 minutes in. A tempest must be just that. Anyway, okay. So the Neo-Hittites sit right here. History of Tool episode. History of Maynard. And thus, Maynard created a perfect circle. I've often sort of made a joke that that Tool is Maynard when he's with his friends, and a perfect circle is Maynard when he's with his in-laws, and Pussifer is Maynard when he's dreaming on drugs. With a 5-minute intro. Yeah. And long periods of time where that makes sense to me. Oh, I'm glad. That is my theory of Maynard. A unified theory of Maynard. So the state of Urartu sits right around this little lake right here. This little lake is called Lake Van, and it literally is spelled just V-A-N. And this nice little bowl-shaped depression right here where you can get some good farmland is going to be Urartu, which is a weird place. But it actually becomes a pretty powerful little country. And it starts really causing a lot of trouble, especially with the Assyrians, because they're going to share a border with Assyria, and the Assyrians are going to hate these guys so much. So here's Urartu, right here again. So this is Lake Van. You have this little state popping up. By the time it gets to like that 6th century BC, these guys are going to just really just perpetually tick off the Assyrians. The Assyrians are going to end up wiping all of them out. So it's not like they get away scot-free. But I'm spoiling a couple of days' lectures from now. So there's Urartu. I do have a picture that I should have shown you. Let me put the hat back on. Adventure hat. And then go back to images. Because Urartu was in modern-day Turkey, we have cool stuff like this that I have been able to see. This is the top of a column that would have been in one of the... Excuse me just a second. I need to clear my throat. Let me clear my throat. Anyway, so this would have been in a big city. You can see here that we've got really, really cool, nice decorative artwork. We've got both geometric patterns, we've got animal and flower motifs, and we've got some good old-fashioned animal imagery, and these are genies. The Urartu art style is really, really heavily influenced by the Assyrians, especially with the way that they style and pose their characters, and the way that they do this neat little sort of faux architectural pattern right here. These are called crow step patterns, by the way, for those of you that are interested. I really actually like art history quite a bit. By the way, these are, they're holding pine cones. Pine cones and fern leaves that you see here are very frequently shown with genies. Now there's this whole sort of deeper, I don't know if it's necessarily a conspiracy theory, but there is some interesting stuff that you can read on the internet. How about I put it that way? Where if you look up the pineal gland in your brain, there are people that say ancient peoples understood what the pineal gland did, and that pine cones are artistic representations of the pineal gland. That's spelled P-I-N-E-A-L, if you want to go do some weird rabbit hole stuff on the internet. It gets deep. I don't know if it's completely wrong or if it's completely right. It's definitely interesting, though. Pineal glands. Never thought you'd be learning about brain chemistry tonight, did you? That's part of the show. We also had a bit of a discourse about tools, so hey, you never know what you're going to get, right? So we're getting more stuff going on. Now, one region that doesn't completely catch up as quickly is this region right down in here, which we call in the ancient world the Levant. And I'll change this over. Pineal gland is shaped like a pine cone. Yeah, because that's the whole like connection. So like if you see a pine cone in the ancient world art, it's some reference to like higher mind function and psychotropic drugs, and there we go. So the Levant is the geographic region right in here, what we would call modern day Israel and Jordan, Lebanon, part of southern Syria, basically the stretch between the Nile River and Syria up here. This is the Levant. And there are going to be a lot of little kingdoms that pop up in that area during this period of time. I have a map that I'll show you. We're not going to go through every single one of them because it gets, it gets pretty hard to know exactly what's going on with a lot of these little places. But let's switch over to that, and I'll show you the map. I keep doing Admiral Akbar. I don't really know why. Okay, so here we go. We have our Phoenician cities, of course, right here in the sort of burnt orange. There is a state right here called Aram. You'll see these people referred to sometimes in history as the Arameans. Other times you'll see them as Aram Damascus. This city, Damas, is their capital. It's the modern-day city of Damascus. So sometimes you'll see them referred to as the Kingdom of Aram Damascus, or just Aramites. Arameans. We have the kingdom down here of Ammon, or the Ammonites. We have Moab. We have Edom, which was one of the larger and more powerful of the kingdoms. This city here, Petra, is a place that I've been to, and I could show you a lot of pictures from there, but at the time, Petra was controlled by the Edomites. And if you know anything about Petra, or if you've ever seen... Oh gosh, I'm going to really... If you've ever seen the really horrible Transformers 2 movie where they get the magical sock full of dust, the temple that they run into is a temple, and it's not even a temple, it's actually a burial tomb in Petra. Or if you've seen the much superior Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, when they find the little temple where the Holy Grail is, that's actually, again, the exact same burial tomb in Petra. All of that stuff, was it is Indiana Jones 3? Yeah. You blotted TF2 out of your memory? Good. I apologize for bringing it back up. If I can do anything to help you bury that again, let me know. Anyway, that version of Petra is after these people right here called the Nabateans take over Petra. This period of time that we're talking about tonight is about 2,400 years before that really happens. You do see here the kingdom of Judah, which we can have a large and fun debate about if you want to get into biblical history. We have the kingdom of Samaria, and we have the kingdom of Philistia. So these smaller little kingdoms right here only take up a couple of 100 miles worth of territory, and there are 7 or 8 of them there. So again, these are not really going to be what you might consider regional powerhouses in any way. They're going to be partially important because of the trade routes that run through them, and they're more important for the people that are around them than they necessarily are for themselves. And I'm not trying to say that to be culturally insensitive. Just historically speaking, the kingdom of Ammon is not particularly the most powerful international, polity that's out there. Read a book, Philistines! Right. Way of the Kings, exactly. There we go. Bring it in. Now, one thing about that Levantine region is that it is very important for the faiths of a lot of different peoples, especially the city of Jerusalem. Next Thursday, we're going to be covering the foundation and history of Jerusalem and the larger religion of Judaism, because it starts really getting its feet right around this time, and I want to establish them before the Assyrians show up and wipe them all out. So come back next week and we'll talk a lot more about Judaism. But I do want to pause here for a moment and bring up a point of consideration. So if we look at what happened in the Bronze Age, we had 4 massive empires. And they had this nice balance between the 4 or 5 of them, because if you want to throw in the Babylonians, there are 5. And then all of that stuff went crazy. And as these regions are sort of pulling themselves out of the Dark Ages, they have to start over again, right? So if you remember, or if you care to go back and listen to the earliest discussions that we had about how cities turned into kingdoms and how those kingdoms turned into empires, these people had to do that stuff from scratch. So the reason you see these smaller regional kingdoms all over the place is because the big, powerful kingdoms all collapsed and left a vacuum where people that would normally be subjugated can become independent on their own, right? So you don't get to be the tiny little kingdom of Aram if there is an Assyria or a Mitanni or a Hittites or the Egyptians around, because they're going to beat the junk out of you and you're going to be part of their kingdom. But when these big powers fall down, you get these small kingdoms that sort of pop up all over the place, right? So that's why you can sort of see that we're coming back together, because we started almost from a blank slate in some of these regions. And now we're getting back up to regional kingdoms. And then the next thing is going to be back to full-out blown empires, which is going to be the height of the Iron Age. And we do need to talk a little bit about Assyria, because the Assyrians are going to be the ones that figure out how to do that first. So the Assyrian dynasty survived the collapse of the Bronze Age. They lost almost all of their territory except for the capital city. And from about 1053 to about 934 BC, things are crappy in Assyria. And I mean for real bad. There is a massive famine in the area because of a massive drought that seems to stretch for about 10 years, right? So 10 years of low grain and food output is going to hit your population really hard. That's also going to drive down the amount of money that you have on hand. It's going to cause hyperinflation. People are going to sell, toilet paper out of the back of a truck and make memes about exchanging them for pizza. That kind of stuff. So as Syria is kind of falling apart and these little kingdoms are popping up, they're taking part of what used to be Assyria. Like the kingdom of Urartu that we just mentioned used to be part of Assyria. The kingdom of Aram used to be part of Assyria. A lot of those Neo-Hittite cities used to be part of Assyria. But because Assyria has been beaten into a pulp, they can't hold on to that region anymore, and so they are much diminished. But the dynasty stays intact, which seems to be kind of a miraculous thing. If you actually go back and read the histories that the Assyrians wrote about this period of time, it talks a lot about the gods. You get a lot of petitions to the gods to save the city. Please, dear Ishtar, save us all. I spent all of the money in the treasury to rebuild your temple instead of feeding the people. Now you got to come through. Hey, deities, we blew the budget building your temple back. Feed us. For real. Right? So some of the kings during that period of time, like these are the kings of Assyria, and we know they exist because of one source. Right? Where if you had like rewound 200 years to the height of the Bronze Age, we knew a reliable list of the kings of Assyria from an Egyptian library that was 1,000 miles away. And we could tell you the years that they ruled, the names of their kids, all from Egyptian sources, not even from the Assyrians. But you go forward 200 years into the middle of these dark ages, and Assyria has one standing stone, and it just has a king's name on it, and that's it for some of these guys. So things are bad. And that changes with a guy named Ashur-dan. This is technically Ashur-dan II. And he rules from 934 to 912 BC. This guy figures out what's going wrong with Assyria. And the biggest thing that he figures out is that borders are important, right? If you're going to be an organized government that keeps what's yours and keeps out what you don't want, you got to have strong borders. No more of this free association of people back and forth. If you come into our country, you're going to have to pay your taxes. You got to build a wall. It's a big, beautiful wall. Lots of walls. Make Assyria great again. Yeah, he's the MAGA of Assyria. And he figures out that the best way to enforce the borders, and I don't know if I should mention this in case by the way, for those of you that don't remember, Agent Jimmy is also the FBI agent who is tasked to monitor all of my broadcasts to make sure that I'm not being a seditious threat to the government. I don't know if I should say this sentence because Agent Jimmy... No, never mind. The particular person in question doesn't read anything, so I'm pretty sure I'll be able to say this and get away with it. The way that Asher Dan figures out to strengthen the borders is just to kill everybody that he doesn't like on the borders. Rewind the podcast. The Phoenicians were cool. They figured out how to trade. They wrote cool stuff. They're the reason we have the alphabet. People started pulling themselves back together. We got lots of cool little new kingdoms that didn't last for very terribly long, but they're pretty neat, like Phrygia and the Neo-Hittites and Urartu and Aram and a whole bunch of kingdoms in the Levant region, like Aram and Ammon and Moab and Edom and Samaria and Philistia and Judah. And now we're talking about Assyria pulling its crap back together. There you go. Welcome, Kelly. For those of you that don't know. Ooh, that's not where I'm supposed to be typing shout-outs. For those of you that don't know, Kelly Howlett, friend of the stream, does art streams herself. Quite a lovely chat. She's working on a series of postcards to send out to people. So if you want a postcard with some pretty cool artwork, give her a follow. Come hang out in the chat. You might hear Swedish rap music. You might hear German party music. You never know. It's a wild seed. Okie dokie. So Asher Dan decides we're going to fix the border problem. The way that we're going to fix the border problem is to go wreck everybody's world. And he goes up into the mountains that are north of the city. Let me get a little bit more zoomed in here. Andrew in the mountains. Hello, how are you? Very appropriate timing, Andrew in the mountains. We're just about to talk about fighting in the mountains. So hopefully they're not coming after you. So this mountain range here that you can see is going to be one of the important boundary regions for the Assyrians because trade runs through that area. There are also a lot of people that live up there that cause them perpetual issues, doing stuff like raiding, stealing, thieving, all sorts of, nasty kind of goobery stuff that you do if you're trying to steal stuff that's not yours. And Asher Dan goes, we're going to go handle those mountain people. So they go to the mountains. Sup? Exactly. Good timing, right? So he focuses on a couple of mountain passes that were really important for trade routes. And he goes, we're going to hold these mountain passes. We don't have many troops, but we're going to strategically put them in places where we know that they're going to be most useful. And so he puts them to protect these mountain passes. He also targets river crossings. Now, you have to again remember that when we look at the Tigris and Euphrates rivers today, they are way different than they used to be in the ancient world. In modern days, they have hydroelectric power dams, they have lots of levees and locks that keep them from flooding, and the region between them, which is Mesopotamia, was much, much greener back in the old days. So this river right here is the Tigris. A fun way to remember which one is the Tigris and the Euphrates, if you look at them like this, the Tigris is on top. So with T's, Tigris is on top, Euphrates is on the bottom. So Tigris and Euphrates. For those of you who don't know, this actually goes way on up into here. So it actually does have a geographic kind of top on it. So there we go. So another thing Ashurdan looks at is we got to hold these key bridges over the rivers so that we can make sure that our trade can move on that. And this is going to make a lot of sense. And he gets his money revenue stream checked out. How important is money to a country? I don't know. It seems like we just make more when we run out. That's why we're 20-something trillion in debt. And we're about to be more trillions in debt because they're going to pass another stimulus bill pretty soon. Not that I'm arguing against the stimulus. I'm arguing that ancient people don't have the same economic power that we do in today's world, where if we go broke and have a depression, we just make more money. They literally couldn't do that because their money was gold. You can't just go make more gold, right? You can't go produce more silver. You can go mine it, but if you can't transport it around and it gets stolen, well, then you're out of luck again. But if you can hold your trade routes and you can get movement flowing in your own economy, then you can start doing more stuff, right? And Ashurdan figures out how to do that. And he's going to target this little group over here that we called Aram. Remember, we just looked at them on the map. Let me show you that map again, and I'll... So here's Assyria up here. Maybe I could actually zoom in on that map a little bit and give you some better... Okay, so here you see the Assyrians holding this region up here. This river right here, the Khabur, is actually super important. One of the river crossings that Ashurdan is going to be looking at is on the Khabur River. And they're going to come over here to Aram. First, Seattle Kraken. Next, stimulus bill, ancient history. Cryo. Also, feel free to ask questions. Yeah, we talked about the Kraken at the beginning, Kelly. New expansion team, NHL. Woo! Don't forget that you can ask questions or make goofy remarks. I'm open to any. Anyway, so the kingdom over here, Aram, had apparently been fighting with the Assyrians prior to Ashurdan taking over, and they had taken a lot of captives and put these people in slavery inside Aram. And Ashurdan's like, nope, we got to go get our folks. And it appears that not only did Ashurdan take an army over to Aram and liberate these people, he also took some land back that the Arameans had taken from Assyria. So things are like moving in the right direction. Also, Washington is now mascotless. Yes. Washington is going to be called the Washington football team. Like, no joke. That's literally, they're going to play, we're the Washington football team. Washington is missing out by not taking red pandas. This is really funny. I think there's one person that holds the licensed trademark for a whole bunch of things that are red, like red wolves and a whole bunch of other red things. And they kept trying to come up with, like, we should call ourselves this. And that dude's like, no, I got that copywritten and I'll sell it to you for like $6 million or something like that. You know, if we changed our name to the DC Redskins. We changed the name. Washington Lizard People. What would be really great is if you're watching them play and you put on the glasses and their jerseys just change to obey. Consume. Oh, better reflect the city's makeup. Yeah, man. Those lizard people, they'll get you. A lot of people wanted these Seattle pigeons. I had not heard that. I know that there is somewhere, and this is no joke, this is actually a legit thing. There is a AAA baseball team. I can't remember what state it's in, but it's called, the city that it's in is called Rocket City. And they are, no joke, the Rocket City Trash Pandas. That is the official name of their AAA baseball team. Seattle Spaghetti Monsters. Hey man, this is the second time that the Flying Spaghetti Monster is coming up. I hope you have been touched by his noodly appendage today. Dress like a pirate. It saves the earth. Anyway, Asher Dan. There we go. All right. Asher Dan is a cool dude. And he does a lot of cool stuff. And he sort of gets Assyria back on its feet. And this is going to be great for his son. And his son's got a great name too. Adad Nirari. Adad Nirari II. Because we've actually already talked about Adad Nirari I back when we were covering Assyria in the Bronze Age. Everybody remember what he did? Our baseball team is called the Green Bay Booyah. It's in Bama. Sounds like a sports car. It does sort of sound like a Japanese sports car. No, not a Japanese sports car. I don't know what that sounds like. I'm going to leave it alone now. Anyway, Adad Nirari II. Adad Nirari Dose. The Trash Pandas? Oh, I got you. What's really kind of neat about Adad Nirari, and this is purely nerd, as if all of the other stuff that I haven't been talking about is somehow less purely nerd than what I'm actually talking about now. But Adad Nirari II is on this big historical document called the Assyrians' Kings List. And this is, and I'm not joking here, one of the most important documents that we have to date ancient events in 3 different continents: Europe, Western Asia, and Africa. The Assyrian Kings List is for real, legit, one of the most important documents to ancient history. And starting with Adad Nirari II, it goes from year to year unbroken for hundreds and hundreds of years. So Adad Nirari I actually sets up what historians refer to as the Neo-Assyrian Empire. And because of the stability that he brings inside of Assyria, the documents produced inside of Assyria are used as authoritative all over the ancient world. Sounds like a video game with cars not wanting to pay license fees. Sports cars. Yeah, so great. Basically Grand Theft Auto. Yeah. Anyway, so what does this guy do? Well, Adad Nirari is going to start expanding the borders. And this is something that Assyria had not done for 2 centuries. Assyria had been shrinking for almost 200 straight years. And Adad Nirari figures out, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to go on the offensive again. How do you know if you're pronouncing the names correctly? That is an excellent question. And I will give you the short, as least nerded out as I am to talk about this answer that is possible. The languages that many people in modern regions speak can be traced through something called ethnolinguistics and archaeolinguistics. And we can look at languages going back through time and get a really good guess at what these words sounded like. Because a lot of the words that people were using even 3,000, 4,000 years ago have linguistic roots that stretch all the way through time, right? So when I say the word ignite, right, I know how to pronounce ignite. That comes from the Latin word igni, which means fire. It's also where we get igneous rock, made by fire. Well, that word igni is originally an Indo-European word that comes over into Latin through the Indo-European linguistic ties. And if we get to India, let's say India back in this actually contemporaneous time, right? So if you went to India during the 900s BC and talked to a Hindu person there that was part of the Vedanta religion, they would tell you that one of their gods was Agni. Agni was the god of fire. So Agni got translated into an Indo-European language and moved across to Europe where it became Igni, where it got wrapped into Latin and then slid over into Germanic and English, where we say ignite. So even though these words that we're saying are thousands of years separate, sometimes the linguistic ties aren't really that hard to trace. So we don't know for certain, but we can make some pretty daggum good guesses. Great online game, terrible online community. We don't always. Some words are legit still in use after millennia. Cardio comes from cardias, the Greek word for heart. There we go. Right. So there's another one. So even though we're separated from these people by thousands of years and hundreds of generations, the language that we speak isn't really that different sometimes. There is a group of people that are archaeolinguists. So basically people that study ancient language. And I read a paper probably about 7 or 8 years ago where they tried to find the oldest words in English that are still in use. And they found about 14 or 15 words. And it was hypothesized that if you took those words back to about 2000 BC and said them, that there was a high percentage chance that the people all the way back in the early Bronze Age would know what you're talking about. I have yet to be able to find that paper again, but it's really cool. I love linguistics, by the way. Words have histories to themselves. And there are so many words that we use that, like alphabet. I just mentioned earlier in the stream, alphabet. That comes from alpha, beta, the first 2 letters of the Greek alphabet. And, linguistics is legit. I love linguistics, man. Pure comes from pure, the Greek word for fire. How do you purify things? You burn off the trash. Right. But it's through our ability to know how to pronounce the individual letters that we can build the names. Right. So one of the things that happens when you go back and figure out how to read Assyrian language written in the cuneiform script is that you got to figure out what the equivalent words are. You got to trace those equivalent words back, and then you can break down the individual symbols and know what letters and sounds they represent, and then it's just putting them together. The things that are hard to tell sometimes are where the stresses are. So it might be Adad Nerari or it might be Adad Nerari. I'm pretty sure it's Adad Nerari because Adad is actually a Semitic word element that gets translated over into some of the Semitic languages and actually shows up in Hebrew, which is one of the most widely studied languages of the ancient world. It's also in Ugaritic, and it's also in Syriac. So, yeah, putting the emphasis on the wrong syllable. Yeah. A lot of that comes from really educated guessing. I can't promise you that we know how to say all of these every single time the right way, but I'm pretty cool with saying Adad Nerari, and that being something that if we were walking down the street and I saw Adad Nerari and I yelled out, Adad Nerari, he would look at me and know I was talking to him. But even knowing how a language works gives you clues about how Yeah, exactly. So, and there are lots of people in the room right now that are super down with the linguistics discussion. I would put the emphasis on the first syllable Adad as well. The Syriac and Ugaritic and Hebrew version of that is Haydad with an H in the front of it, adding that breathy element. And Haydad is a word that is used all the time. It's one of the gods in a lot of the Canaanite and Semitic pantheons. So, and to show you how that word gets around, one of the kings of Aram, the Arameans that the Assyrians were fighting with, a couple hundred years later in the 700s, there's a king in Aram, and his name is Ben-Hadad, which is like the son of this god, basically. So I love some history. I love it when people ask questions and I get to nerd out like that. Thank you. I hope some people got a straight answer out of all of my sort of wrangling discussion there. All right, so what is up with Adad Nirari? He decides to start expanding. The first people he goes after are those darn Urartans, because they were causing trouble. They were also holding that northern region that was really up in those mountains that the Assyrians wanted to hold on to. So they're going to start fighting with Urartu. And they're also going to start fighting with Aram sort of in large. And they're going to go over and beat the poop out of Aram under Adad Nirari. So with the rule of Adad Nirari II, Assyria is going to start gaining momentum. And by the way, he rules from 912 BC to 891 BC. He is going to get all the way over to the Mediterranean. And when he runs into the Mediterranean, he's going to run smooth into the Phoenicians. And this is going to show you how powerful the Phoenicians had become with their economy at that time. Adad Nirari gets over into that region and decides, you know what? I'm not going to try to take over the Phoenicians, because what they're doing is something that's really going to benefit me. Now, he does threaten them. He basically demands that they give him really good deals, and even a couple of times demands that some of the Phoenician cities gives him stuff in the form of tribute. But he doesn't go down and destroy all of them because they're making so much money. And what he needs is money. You got to have money to run an empire, right? So this gaining momentum is also going to lead him to look south. Now, one of the things that we have always been talking about is how much the Babylonians in the southern part of Mesopotamia, down here, I'm not even pointing at that, down here, don't like the Assyrians in northern Mesopotamia up here. And Adad Nirari figures out that he can sort of settle some old beef. And he gets down into the southern part of Assyria, which would have been the northern part of Babylon. And he wrecks their world and takes a lot of their land. And this is going to sort of catapult the Assyrian Empire into a period of primacy that is going to be one of the biggest empires of the ancient world. The Assyrians become, and I'm not exaggerating here, the boogeymen. They are the scariest and most horrible people. You do not want to see them show up. There are records of later Assyrian kings bringing artists with them. I know we've got a lot of artists in the room tonight. If I said today to all of our artist friends, how would you like a government-sponsored artist position? The government's going to pay you, and you have all of your stuff paid for. You get whatever you need, right? You just got to work for the government, and you got to draw what they ask you to draw and paint what they ask you to paint, sculpt what they ask you to sculpt. How many people would like that? All of your needs taken care of, just got to work for the government. Who would jump on that option? Anybody? Not for the current government? Fair enough. Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm glad you actually kind of brought up that angle, because it turns out what some of these emperors of the Assyrians wanted you to do what some of the Assyrian emperors wanted you to do was follow the army around, right? And the army would, let's say, go take a city, right? So the army attacks this city, and the Assyrian emperors would send people into the city to bring out captives to the outside, and then they would do horrible, horrible things to them, like skin them alive, and then pile up their skin in giant heaps. And the emperors would say, all right, art boy, art that. And your job would be, I'm going to draw a giant pile of skinned human beings, or I'm going to draw a giant pile of decapitated human heads, or I'm going to draw a whole bunch of people impaled on giant spears. And what they would do is take those artist renditions back to their capital city and they would have them sculpt that on the walls of the palace. So imagine walking into the palace of this Assyrian emperor, and you walk down this long hallway, and all down the sides of the hall are these relief paintings and relief sculptures of him sitting on top of a giant pile of heads outside of a conquered city, or him sitting in front of a field of impaled corpses. Hard pass. That's crazy. It's friggin' artistic propaganda, and the Assyrians figured out how to do it. They showed you how scary they were because they were that scary. But that's where we're headed. We're not going to talk anymore about that tonight. We're going to put a bookmark in that and close the book for the night and put the book on the shelf. And in a couple of weeks, when we talk about the expansion of the Assyrian Empire, we'll talk about all those cool people like Shalmaneser III and Tiglath-Pileser. All those great people that everybody is just itching to get their fingers into, right? Yeah, and Cryo likes drawing actual dark, creepy things, but not like that kind of dark, creepy stuff, no. Right? Yeah, we're getting into your time period. Yeah, we'll talk about Assyria wrecking a whole bunch of Levantine kingdoms, and we'll get some... next lesson we'll talk about Judaism. And I don't want to call it a lesson. Next conversation we'll talk about Judaism. So that is where I want to sort of leave for the moment. We have pulled ourselves out of the Dark Ages. Good. I forgot to show you Adad Nirari. Let me show you Adad Nirari, because we actually start getting art again. They have pulled themselves out of the Dark Ages to the point that they can employ artists. Check out this guy. Ain't that dude scary? Check that guy out. He's got himself a war axe. He's got himself the helmet with the horns of the gods on there. He's got a serpent-looking thing by the neck. Yeah. There we go. This is Adad Nirari II. And we know that Assyria was doing well because this exists, right? Remember me talking about how bad Assyria had gotten during the sort of downturn between about 1000 and about 930, where we had kings of Assyria that are known by one inscription, right? So now we have Adad Nirari, and we're getting the sort of cult of personality built back up around our leader. So we're pulling ourselves slowly but surely out of that dark cultural age. Please keep going. You have so many more trees to cut out. That's all that I had prepped for. If anybody has questions, or if anybody wants to redeem points or anything like that, I'd be more than happy to keep on rolling for at least a little bit. Or comments, or what's going on in the modern world, and how does that relate to something in history, or where did that thing come from? I mean, I'm here just as much for you guys as I am to hear myself talk. What is this thing? Ancient Assyrian wall carvings. Oh, this is going to be good. Oh, yeah. I've got pictures of that stuff. That's from the Louvre. We'll show lots of art when we get there, Kelly. I promise. I promise. Summon the Opinion Hat. Oh, the Opinion Hat. My opinion on Portland. How are we getting to the Louvre? I've been to the Louvre, and I took about a bajillion pictures when I was there. So we will share. Also, no joke. Let me see if I can get this to work. Okay, so the Opinion Hat has been summoned. And when the Opinion Hat comes on, it looks like this, and it makes me look very opinionated on purpose, because it's the Opinion Hat. And I give my opinion, so you should be aware, everybody in the room, that this is my opinion. It is going to be based on what I know and what I think, but we're getting into the weeds, right? This is not the same as the historical discussion that we just got into. I think what Daria wants to know is what the devil's going on in Portland right now. All right. So, based on my understanding, my opinion on Portland is that it started off as a very legitimate protest that linked in with a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests that started around the same period of time that George Floyd was murdered. Well, I guess to be absolutely fair, I should say allegedly murdered, but home dude's dead now, and he was dead at the hands of some other guy. So there we go. Innocent until proven guilty. Hopefully justice carries itself out in that place, or in that scenario, right? So there were protests that started right there. Extrajudicial killing. Okay. And the protests in Portland were very, very large. They were very loud, and there were some riots that happened over there. And rioting is not the question of opinion that we're going to discuss tonight. I don't want to get into the rioting thing. Let's talk about Portland. The Portland PD, from what I can tell, seems to have been completely overwhelmed with the amount of protests going on. At that time, there was a lot, and I say at that time like it was, 20 years ago. We're talking about stuff that mostly happened about 3 months ago. I know it seems like a bajillion years. But there was a really big anti-cop atmosphere going around in the media and in a lot of the sort of social media world. And a lot of police were very afraid that their lives were in danger. And a lot of cities had to take that into account when they were doing their sort of policing stuff. And while the vast majority of these protests were done absolutely peacefully, that doesn't mean that people didn't see them as potentially dangerous. It's not my job to make other people recognize what is peaceful or what isn't, but I know that a lot of people in law enforcement always go out on the job and think that this might be the day that they die, because cops get killed. It's a violent job, but that's what they get paid for. They don't get paid enough. That's a whole different world. They also get expected to do too much because police are not mental health care specialists. Police are not psychologists. They're not divorce lawyers, and they're not clinicians. And we ask our police to do too much. And if they did less, they'd have more money to go around and they could pay people better and attract better people. All of this is my opinion. So, where was I? Portland got overwhelmed, and Portland asked for help. At that time, there were a lot of states of emergency being declared and emergency situations being declared, and this goes hand in hand with the COVID measures that were taken. A lot of the executive orders that were passed by municipalities were only able to be passed because of declarations of emergency. Executives don't usually have power to just make people stay home and lock stuff up, right? Also, the fact that we expect police to do all these things, police seem less inclined to actually seek professions in these fields. Right, there we go. So the states of emergency had been declared because of the COVID pandemic, and that allowed a lot of leeway for action to happen. And at some point, some of these big cities like Portland apparently asked the federal government for assistance. And this is a process that has to take place. They're sort of proper channels. And that gave the current administration a lot of leeway as to how they interpreted that request for assistance. And the way that the current administration apparently seems to have handled this was, we're going to take the riot situation that looks like it's surrounding federal monuments on federal property as being a cue for us to bring in both border security guards and Department of Homeland Security guards And because they were operating under this sort of weird and very, very gray and very, very mushy situation of emergency declaration, they could do a lot of stuff that they normally would not be able to do, like roll up on people in unmarked vans and throw them in and take them to jail. I think there needs to be a lot of work done on this. Most specifically, I think we really need in America to look at what executives can do. We need to be a lot more hedging. In past times, America has written laws that are vague to give ourselves wiggle room when weird stuff happens. Because weird stuff does happen all the friggin' time. You know, if I had pulled up on somebody last year and said, hey, man, what do you think we'll be doing in July 23rd next year, 2020? A lot of people would never have guessed that we're going through the scenario we're going through right now, right? So some of the laws have loopholes and leeway to allow for flexibility in the face of crazy crap like we're experiencing right now. But what we're figuring out is that a lot of those laws were also written with the idea that people would act like moral people. And people aren't acting like moral people all the time. And because of that, we really need to check ourselves in the mirror and go, maybe we need to add some guardrails where we didn't need to in the past and be a little bit more specific about what people in executive positions can and can't do. So the situation in Portland is spiraling out of control right now because now the federal troops are in the city, and they were there because Portland asked for assistance, and now Portland says we don't want your assistance, but they're already there, and there is a giant argument over whether or not Portland gets to kick those people out, or whether or not, because they were asked under emergency declaration, those people get to stay. We expect every executive to be Washington, Mark, whatever, and the many, many power-hungry jerks that we've had since then are clearly not Washington. That is accurate. So that's my opinion on Portland. The solution that I have is unfortunately something that would be very hard to do right now. Our Congress is so divided right now that any attempt to limit the party of the sitting president would be a non-starter in the Senate. The Senate has shown that they are going to protect the president basically in whatever he wants to do. Whether that's right or wrong is your opinion, not mine. But I think that any person that truly values the Constitution understands that stuff has been happening since World War II around the executive branch on both sides of the aisle. That is not what the founders of our country would have originally expected or wanted. From what I have seen so far, federal troops seem to be attacking bystanders and journalists. Well, yeah, because there's actually a law in Portland that says that the police can't use tear gas. But the federal troops that are in Portland don't have to follow that law because they're there under that weird emergency declaration situation, and they can do a lot of different stuff because they have different... they don't have to answer to the people of Portland. They answer to the federal government, right? And acting more like a gang than an actual police force. Well, this gets into this conversation again of what's the role of the police? Are the police there to prevent crime, or are they there to stop bad people, or are they there to prevent a riot, or are they there to protect a particular piece of land? The problem with knowing what the federal troops are there is that we don't know what their sort of operating guidelines are. We don't know what they were told they could do and couldn't do because all of that was done under hush-hush. Washington had his faults, not saying he didn't, but he was genuinely conscious of his place and standard positional sentence. I think that's probably more true than not, KP. It seems like it's just making everything worse. It's just escalating it all. Well, it does seem to be causing a lot of trouble. No joke. But we also have to look at exactly what the president has said in the recent couple of weeks. He has positioned himself as, and I quote, the law and order president. And if you're going to claim that you're the law and order president, you got to crack skulls, right? Because that's how you show that you're standing up for your side's beliefs. So I would suspect that this is not going to be something that is going to be just confined to Portland. I think we're going to see a lot of this stuff happen in other large cities that have had sustained protests, that have had riots, that might have asked the federal government for assistance. Because if they could sneak their way into Portland under this sort of fuzzy membrane of emergency declaration, they're going to do the same thing with other cities around the country. Dun 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 dun. Boom boom boom. Yeah, they just showed up in Seattle today. There we go. There we go. Just seems like everything's getting worse. It is starting to look a lot like a dictatorship. Functionally, there are still some stuff that hopefully that is going to keep us away from coming to that. I think I probably need to take off the opinion hat because I'm getting too close to stuff that might get really incendiary. And the stream is supposed to be a place where we talk in a calm way. We do try to exchange ideas. We stay cool with each other. And I think that it would be unbecoming of me to continue this discussion just because I don't necessarily want to use this particular platform that I'm trying to keep sort of family friendly and safe to get into a lot of those topics. So while I do respect the topic and I definitely do have opinions on them, I don't know if this is necessarily the right forum to talk about it. Send me some emails and I'd be happy to respond to those. So now they're just saying that protesters are fighting back with shining lasers at the officers. They want to use this as a reason to use more force. I'm just trying to focus on my family and friends and keep everything positive. Everyone here has an awesome... Yeah. You know, I feel that too. +1. I don't... is that like you feel that too? Well, I mean, I could definitely talk more about this stuff. It's definitely near and dear to my heart. I know the history of our country. I know a lot about how we've screwed stuff up and how we've done stuff right. And I think that's one of the biggest things that we can learn from history. Human beings are human beings, right? And I say this all the flippin' time on the stream. But if you look at people in the ancient world, they still want the same things that we want. They still want lives like we want. They still want the good stuff. They still want peace. They still want power. They still crave things. And because human beings have committed actions in the past, we can look at those and go, that's a dumb idea. We shouldn't do that again. Not casting as aspersions, but on a genuinely necessary movement, but me too, as much bag as now as a phrase. Yeah, I don't know if we want to get into that other than saying that all people are human beings and that every single human being on Earth has the same rights, regardless of how you identify yourself, what you look like, what gender you want. Every person with human DNA is a human and is equal. There we go. It's a tricky opinion to give, and you kept your cool regardless of whether I agree or not. You handled that section super well. Much love. I try to keep myself straight. I try to keep my hat cool. You can't just say, the puppy, who's actually right here beside me. Kaylee, you want to come up here? Oh, she's so sleepy. She just yawned at me. Come here. Come on. Oh, yes, the puppy. This will make everybody feel better, right? It's the puppy. Oh, thank you for the sugars. Hello. You want to look right here? Look right here. Hey, Kaylee, look right here. Hey, look right here. Oh, the puppy. Yeah, situational palate cleanser. I wish things would change in America. There's a lot of things that we could do different. There's a lot of things we should do different. And my opinions are stronger than I let on. I do, for real, try to keep this forum a PG at worst rated area. I do, for real, try to keep this as a genuinely chill space. I promise that I could talk a lot more about that. All right. Anybody want to redeem anything else or talk about anything else? I'd be happy to. Oh, I was going to see if we could go into the Louvre. So one of the things that Google Earth does, let me see if it's going to let us. And of course it won't. Maybe we could just try it anyway. Nah. One of the things that Google Earth has tried to do with a lot of these big museums is basically let you walk around inside them. So like if we go, nope, that's, yep. So let's go to Uffizi. Random history fact. You want just like literally something random, or you want something of a specific topic? No, you don't have to specify. I could literally just go bleh and spit something out. Like the saying "making money hand over fist" literally comes from the method that they used to use to make money, where they would take a die that had the bottom part of the coin impressed on that. They put a glob of metal on it, and then they would have another die that would go on top of this, and you would take your hammer and bash this down to squish the coin. So you were literally making money hand over fist. That's literally where that comes from. So this is not the Uffizi. That's not it, though. It's saying that's it, but that's not it. Are we even in Florence? Let's just go to Florence and I can find it from there. That's a cool fact. Cool. Well, I hope that was worth it. Why is Google Earth being a jerk? Am I really going to, for real, have to, like, zoom into Florence? Worth it. Punch! By the way, Florence, really, really cool city. If you ever have a chance to go there, absolutely worth it. If you go to Italy and you only get to go to one city, fly into Rome because you're going to have to. Don't stay in Rome. Just go straight to Florence. Florence is so much cooler. Oh, Santa Croce. Such a great church. All right, so this guy right here is this big museum called the Uffizi. And I know that because I'm such a nerd that I know where stuff is friggin' by skyline of the city. So if you go to Google Earth and drop your little Google Earth guy in, you can for real legit walk around the Uffizi. Check out all the cool paintings. So you can literally drop yourself into some of these super cool museums in the big cities of the world and walk yourself around and look at all the cool art. You can do this for the British Museum in London. You can do this for the Palace of Versailles, the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York, the Imperial History Collection in Kyoto. Lots of cool museums that you can go walk around in on Google Earth for free without the crowd. Tuscany was legit. Love that place. Really cool. All right. So there's a little bonus nugget for you. Let me get rid of these guys. Anybody have anything else? I am going now to check to see if there's anybody to raid. Whom shall we raid? Hey, Cryo, you are very much welcome. Thanks for hanging out and participating and chilling. And thank you. While I can tell you this face to face, and you have to listen to me talk, and I don't have to type all of this stuff out. All of you that are Twitch streamers that have promoted me in your channel and helped me out and sent people my direction, you are superheroes, and you are all super awesome, and I really for real appreciate it. When I first got this stuff started, I had no idea how it was going to go or how well it was going to go or anything like that. So much appreciated. You all are super awesome people. All right. Schmandrew is on. We could go raid Schmandrew. Yeah, it looks like he just got started. What is Schmandrew drawing?
Style.
Something lion-y or dragon-y. I'm down with it. So we're going to go raid Schmandrew Art. Schmandrew is a really great digital artist. He does art of a lot of different kind of genres, usually stuff that we might, kind of consider nerdy. He's done some comic book fan art. He does fantasy art. Really cool streamer, really nice guy, very chill atmosphere. I don't have any problem dropping you all off with him. Hey, Calm Heart, welcome in. Oh, just in time. Oh, sorry. Sorry, Calm Heart. So we are going to go raid Schmandrew. As always, our raid cry is adventure, and you can throw in all of the adventure hats if you want. Thank you all for coming in. I really do appreciate it. It makes my day better when I get to spend time with you all. I appreciate all of the conversation and the encouragement and the goofy jokes and the bad puns. All of that stuff is near and dear to my heart. You all are great people. I hope the world treats everybody well. Remember that things pull back together. Even when the things are the darkest, we can pull things back together, right? Don't give up hope. Do something nice for somebody. Ask for help if you need it. Asking for help is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of recognizing that you're in trouble. And there are cool people here that'll help you out. So I'm going to hit the start raid button. I'm going to switch us over to the bye-bye stream, or screen rather, and we're going to go raid Schmandrew. Thanks everybody. I will see you again next Thursday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time. Until then, hope the world treats you nice. See you around.